In this video, we're going to give you an introduction into Google Forms. So Google Forms is often thought of as a way to collect data with a survey. But we're actually going to show you a little bit later on in the class that we can collect other types of data other than just a survey. So we're going to show you different ways we can use Google Forms later on. But in this video, we're just going to be talking about how do we open up a Google Forms and then some of the key features of Google Forms, and you're actually going to create a survey. So here we are on the main Google web page. I'm logged in under my Casper College email. We're going to go here and I'm going to go to Drive. So we go to my Drive. I'm going to find that folder, that shared folder, the one AGRI 1010 with my first name and last name. I'm going to double click on that. And whenever I'm creating this folder or creating a Google Forms, I want all of my Google Forms to be in their own folder. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a new folder. And I'm going to call this Survey. So I've created this new folder and I'm going to actually go into this folder. So I'm now in this folder and I want to create a Google Form. So I'm going to say New. Now Google Forms is right here. So we don't have to go scrolling very far, so we can click Google Forms. Once Google Forms pops up, of course, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and title this survey. So where it says Untitled Form, I'm going to call this Survey. So now that I've called it Survey, and I've got my title in there, I'm actually going to go where it says Untitled Form, click on that, and whatever I type in here, that very first time it's going to throw it up there. So it's going to predict actually what the title of this survey is. The next thing is especially if you're creating a survey and having to send it out, a form description is very nice. So you might want to type in something like, please fill out this survey for computer or introduction to agricultural technology. A lot of times we can just kind of give a brief overview of what this survey is, or give them a little bit of instructions, asking them to do something in that description. Now we get to actually start adding some questions. So it already gives us one untitled question. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. Now, the thing that you ought to notice is that over here it automatically defaults to a multiple choice. And if we click on that multiple choice, we actually have a lot of different options. We're going to talk about those, but we're going to go ahead and keep this one as a multiple choice. That's typically what it defaults to. So what is a multiple choice? A multiple choice is where you can select one answer from several answers. So for example, this question might be something along the lines of, do you enjoy introduction to ag tech? And then it actually populates this suggestions down here, and you can say add all. If we say add all, it's going to throw in the yes, the no, the maybe. So we want to go ahead and keep yes and no, but we don't want to keep this maybe. We want a definite answer, either yes or no on this particular question. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this response right here. Furthermore, maybe I want to say yes, I find this class to be fun and engaging. Now, and then maybe we want to say no, this class is boring. Now maybe I want to add another option. Maybe I want to go ahead and add an option like, say, yes, this class is a good class. Or maybe I want to add another no option and say, no, I already knew all of this stuff. So now we've just added some more questions in there, and you can say add option, or you can just go ahead and if we need to add another question, we can just say enter, and it's going to bring up that next option and things of that nature. Another one that we could actually add is this add other. If we say add other, whenever they go to fill out this survey, they can actually type in what they want to write here, and that would be the other. Now, if we look, we have a yes, a no, and a yes, and a no. These questions are kind of out of order. So let's go ahead and move these questions into the order that we want. So we're going to actually, you see these 6 little dots over here on the side, and if I hover my mouse over those 6 dots, I get these kind of the large cross. So if we click, we can actually click and hold, we can actually drag those where we want them. So maybe we want it to be saying something along this line. Yes, I find the class to be fun and engaging. Yes, this is a good class. No, I already knew all this stuff. And then no, the class is boring. And then we have this other. Now, whenever they go to preview this, or whenever we preview it later, it will only allow us to select one answer. So a key component of multiple choice is it only allows one answer. Now, let's go ahead and add a new question, because we aren't done with our survey yet. We want to add another question. And I want to come up here, and where this little plus is with a circle around it, and I can click on that and it says add question. So I click on add question. And the first thing I want to do is I want to add now a checkbox question. So I'm going to click right here and I'm going to go to checkboxes. So what is a checkbox question? A checkbox question allows you to select multiple answers. So if you're about to ask a question that requires a single specific answer, you want to use multiple choice. But if you want to give them options and you actually want them to select more than one answer, or they have the possibility to select more than one answer, you want to give them a checkbox. Like, for example, if you ask the question, what is your favorite food? Well, favorite food typically implies it's one single specific favorite food. There's one type. So that's actually going to be more of a multiple choice question because it's implying that there is a single specific favorite one. But if we went ahead and asked, what is your top 3 favorite breakfast foods? Well, now that's implying we want you to select 3. We want you to select multiple. That's what a checkbox is you're wanting them to actually select multiple answers. So let's go ahead and add some options in here. Maybe we're going to say bacon, biscuits, scrambled eggs, fried eggs, maybe omelet, maybe we're going to say fresh fruit, pancakes, waffles. So we have some options in there. But like I was saying, a checkbox question is implied for you to actually select more than one answer. Whereas a multiple choice, you want them just one answer. That's it. So let's go ahead and add another question. And the next question I want to add is a linear scale. So I'm going to come back up here to this plus, say add question. I'm going to change this from multiple choice right away, but I'm going to say a linear scale. So a linear scale is like on a scale of 1 to 5, or on a scale of 1 to 10, or on a scale of 1 to 20, how do you rate something? So I might ask the question, how would you rate Casper College? And I'm going to ask this on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. And then I'm going to go ahead and label this. And label my numbers. Now, why is that important? Well, somebody might look at this and say, well, 10 is the best, or 1 is the best. So depending on how you view it, some people might say that 1 is, the absolute best you can go, whereas some people might say, well, the 10 is the absolute best. And you don't know what the people are thinking, so we're going to give them some labels to kind of provide that direction. So 1 is going to be, this is the worst school ever, and we know we're never going to select that. And 10 being, this is the best school ever. So we have one saying that this is bad, 1 being bad, and 10 being great. So that way, whenever they go in there and they actually select, which one they know, 10 is great, 1 is 0, or 1 is basically a bad school. And that's actually going to show up when they go to take this survey. So it provides some direction. Now let's go ahead and add another question. And I'm going to use this question to show kind of what are some of those other options, what are some of those other questions. So if we click on these other questions, we get a short answer. A short answer is just basically that. We wanted them to give a short description, or they can actually type in. So if we say short answer, we might ask, what is your favorite class here on campus? So then you could actually physically type in what is your favorite class. So we might use this if we're looking for somebody's response, and they're actually going to have to type that in, and everybody's answer is going to be different. This paragraph, the paragraph is a long answer text. We might use the paragraph, not of what is your favorite class here on campus, but describe to me what you learned last or so far this semester. You might want a long paragraph or a long answer text to allow them more room to type more explanations in there. So there's that. There's also a drop-down menu. We see drop-down menus a lot whenever we're talking about selecting a state. So let's actually add a couple of questions real quick. This question is going to be that short answer. What is your favorite class here on campus? We're going to go ahead and add another question, and we're just going to kind of put them all on there. The paragraph, what have you learned so far this semester? Now, maybe we're going to ask a question like, what state are you from? And we're going to add some different options. We're going to actually do this drop-down menu here. Option 1, let's say Wyoming. Option 2, let's go Colorado. Option 3, Montana. Option 4, Idaho. Option 5, Utah. Let's throw in there North Dakota and South Dakota, just to give us kind of a short list for time's sake. So that's what a drop-down menu is going to be. Whenever you select it, you're actually going to be able to pull and select an answer from a drop-down list. We see that a lot whenever we're selecting one of the 50 states. So let's go ahead and add another question and see what other question types we can add. So talk about short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, drop-down, checkboxes, drop-down. You can do a file upload, a linear scale. So a file upload is along the lines of you need to upload a picture. You're wanting somebody to upload a picture of something that they did. You could do a file upload. You could add a linear scale like we already showed you. There's a multiple choice grid you could select and a checkbox grid. They're basically kind of the same thing as multiple choice and checkboxes, only they allow you more of a grid, more options. Then you could also add a date and time. So if you wanted to add something like date, so that way you could say, when did you take this survey? Then they could actually add the date, time, and year, or the month, day, and year. Now, when is this handy? Well, if you're wanting people to say, when did you start Casper College, for example, and they want to put in their date, or you're looking for a specific day whenever they did something, we can add that particular information in there. So that's kind of a quick, a semi-quick overview of the other questions. Now, what if we added a question that we don't really want anymore? Or before we do that, what if, now that we have all these kind of questions put in there, what if we wanted to actually put our date way up there at the top? Maybe we could say, what day are you taking the survey? And we want them to answer this question first, but it's way down here at the bottom. Well, we can actually move this question, and in order to move this question, we're going to take our mouse, hover it over those 6 little dots at the top of the question. We're going to click, and then we're just going to drag it up. We're going to put this all the way at the top, right below this title. So we can actually move questions around by actually taking those, moving our mouse over those 6 dots and just dragging it up and dragging it down. So we can actually move questions the way we need them. Now we've got all these questions in here, and what if we determine we really don't want to keep one of these questions? Maybe I don't want to actually ask you, what is your favorite class here on campus? Because everybody knows it's going to be computers and ag. So this is kind of a question we don't really need to ask. So we need to go ahead and remove it. So we can actually click this trash can button right here, and we can actually delete a question. Now, what if we're coming up with several multiple choice questions that are all going to be relatively the same, and we don't want to have to do a lot of typing? So something you can actually do is if you needed to copy a question, you can actually duplicate a question by clicking on this button right here. It would actually duplicate that question for you, but we don't need to do that. I just wanted to show you that. Now, another thing that's going to be very handy that we can do is actually make certain questions required. Right now, none of these questions are required, but maybe I want to make certain questions required. For example, I want to know the answer to this question of, do you enjoy Introduction to Agricultural Technology? I want to make that required because I want you to actually answer that question. I don't want to just give it to you as an option. I wouldn't mind knowing what your 3 favorite breakfast foods are, but that's not as important. So let's not force you to answer that. But maybe I want to go ahead and have you make it required here that you rate Casper College. So I'm going to make it that particular question required as well. And I'm simply doing that by clicking on this little button right here, and it basically slides that little tab over and it makes that a required question. So the next thing I want to show you is actually, now that we've created the survey, how do we view the survey? To view the survey, we're going to come up here and we're going to click on this preview button, this little eye right here. We're going to click on that, and that's going to actually bring up this survey, and it's going to preview it. So this is what that date looks like. We can actually click on this calendar and say, all right, we're taking this on June 29th of 2021. Do you enjoy agricultural technology? I'm going to say yes, this is a good class. Now, if you notice, as I click on different ones, it shifts my answer. It only allows me to select one answer. That is a key characteristic of that multiple choice, is it only allows me to select one answer. What are my top 3 favorite breakfast foods? Now, I really like bacon, I like scrambled eggs, and let's say that I like pancakes. So those are my 3. Now, here's the deal. I can select as many as I want. So that's kind of another key aspect of whenever you're doing a checkbox, is ask them a specific number, so that way it kind of limits them to what you want them to do. So I went ahead and selected my 3. Notice that I can select more than one on this checkbox. That is a key characteristic of that checkbox. You can select more than one. So there are 2 different questions. Multiple choice and checkbox are meant to be used in different ways. Now, how would you rate Casper College? And you can see where it's now talking about 1, this is the worst school ever, 10 being the best school ever. We know Casper College, it definitely rates a 10, so we're going to go ahead and select that. Actually, yep, we're going to go ahead and select 10. And then what have you learned so far this semester? And I'm going to go ahead and leave that blank. It's not a required one. I don't want to type a bunch of stuff in, so I'm going to leave that blank. And then maybe I don't want to say what state I'm from, but I can click on this drop-down menu and I can select which state I'm from. Well, let's go ahead and select that one right there and click Submit. So it actually submits that survey. So let's go ahead and submit another response because I want to show you something real quick. Let's go ahead and put in this date. I find the class to be really good. I'm going to skip this question. I'm going to skip the rest, and I'm going to click Submit. It won't let me submit because it's saying that this one particular question is required. If you notice before, I didn't submit them all, or I didn't answer them all, and I clicked Submit and it went through because certain questions weren't required. So let's go ahead and see how this looks on our end after somebody answers this survey. So let's jump back. I'm going to go ahead and leave it. I'm not going to finish that. But we're back at this main survey aspect. Remember, we went right here to preview it. So I'm going to go to these responses. If I click on these responses, it actually shows us what the responses were. What day were you taking the survey? We saw that one person took it on the 29th. 100% said that it was engaging. And then it kind of gives a breakdown of what are those answers that I filled out. So this kind of gives you a quick overview, and you can look at it in summary, by question, or by individuals. But I want to show you something else, another way to look at this. I like looking at these surveys on Google Sheets. So we need to actually link this form to a Google Sheets. The way we do that is we're going to click right here on this little green Google Sheets icon. I click Create Spreadsheet. It's going to say create a new spreadsheet, or I could select an existing spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new one, and I'm going to call this Survey Responses. Then I say Create. So it's actually going to create that survey, and it's going to place it in that same exact folder that I created, that same exact folder that my original survey was in. So it's going to automatically put it in there. And you can see we now have a Google Sheets page, and it's going to be giving us all of the same answers that that was on that other results, but now it's going to be set it up in a Google Sheets. Another key interesting thing is this timestamp. Every time somebody submits a response, it's going to tell you the day and the exact time that they click submit. So you can always go back and see when did people actually fill out this particular survey. So let's actually jump it back into this folder. So this is that. If we go to my shared folder, remember I created this particular folder for my survey, and I started my survey in there, and I linked that spreadsheet. You see that spreadsheet is already in this folder because that's where I started it from. That's where I had my folder, or that's where I had my Google Forms at. So let's go ahead and jump back to my survey, and let's look at some other things. There's a couple of other key things that I want to show you, and the first one I want to show you is these settings. I want to go to these settings because there's some other things that you can actually select. Like, for example, maybe I want I want to know who's answering these surveys. So I can say collect emails. So then you could also say the response receipt. So that way it sends back a receipt, or it sends an email back to the recipient or the person who filled out this email of what was their answers. So there is that option as well. But there is this definitely collect emails. And I like this because I want to know who's answering my email. You can say restrict to users in the Casper College and trusted domain. You can say limit to one response. That's going to require them to sign into Google. You've got some other options down here, like they can edit after a submit and see charts and see summary charts and text responses. So there are some choices down there. There is also presentation. There's some other things you can do in here, like for example, that show that link to submit another response. We saw that whenever I clicked submit the first time, and it asked me, do you want to fill out another one? I can uncheck that, and it's not going to show us that link anymore. And then you can also make quizzes out of Google Sheets, but we don't need to worry about that so much for this particular assignment. So the next thing we need to talk about is how do you actually send out this survey? Now that we've created the survey, now we need to actually send it out and get responses. We're going to do that under this send. And there are 3 key ways you can send a survey. Number 1, you can send it to them in an email. And to send it to them in email, you just click right here and you type in who you want to send it to. Like, let's say I want to send it to Tyler Reagan. Then maybe I want to send it to Mr. Horniker. So I can send it to myself, Mr. Horniker, and then anybody else that I want to. And I can change the subject. It's going to default to the name of that survey. And of course, my survey was called survey, so it defaults to that. And then you can also type in your own particular message down here. And this include form and emails. So what does that do? If we say include form and emails, when it sends that email, it's going to include that form within it. If I don't check that, then it actually gives them a link to the form. So it just kind of depends on which is your preference. Another option is you can actually go ahead and copy the link. So there is a link there. If you don't want to do an email, you can copy this link. I like to shorten this URL, just makes it cleaner. You can copy that link, paste it, and then send it to whoever, however you need to do it. Another option is to embed it. You can embed it into websites. You can embed it in different places where it automatically populates. But I imagine the 2 most popular ones are sending it in an email or this link. So that's the key things that you need to know. There's one last deal I'd like to show you, And that is, you can kind of make these surveys a little more fun by customizing a theme. So if I click on this customize theme, I can actually choose an image, and maybe I want to do something like just for kids, and I want, maybe not, maybe a wedding or a night out, for example. And I want that to be my background. I can click on that and say insert. And now whenever I go to preview it, it actually changes the kind of the overall color and adds this image in there. Or I can just go ahead and get rid of that image and just choose a different color or a different theme to kind of make it a little more unique to you, just to where it's not that purple that everybody's doing. So you can actually change that theme as well. But overall, that's essentially what you need to know, or a quick or relatively quick overview of Google Forms. Of course, there's a lot of more stuff that we can get into with it, but that's essentially what you need to know to get started on it.